Alright, I really hope this video turns out. I recorded like a 30-minute video recently and went back and listened to the audio, and it was just garbage. It was so bad. So I invested in a nice mic, and we'll see how that goes. But one thing that I've been wanting to do on my channel is get the OT videos going again. And if you don't already know, any video that's labeled OT in the title, it stands for overtime. That's a wrestling reference, and this is just going to be extra content, and you're not going to miss out on anything HVAC wise. So don't feel like you need to watch these. What these videos are really is just me talking about life or whatever, whatever's really on my mind. And some of you may not know, and in fact, many of you probably don't, just because it's a complicated story. But I'm a very, very philosophical, psychological, spiritual person. I love that stuff. If you track with my channel, you might think that I'm consumed with HVAC. And, I do love that, and I've plunged real deep into HVAC. It's just my personality. I love to take things to the extreme. But when it comes to what I think about in my spare time, with every free moment that I have, it's pretty much always something philosophical, spiritual, some kind of... I'm fascinated by psychology. I just... The way that the human mind works is just incredible. Really incredible. In fact, I saw an article recently where they've mapped neurons and kind of gotten an idea of where they're at in the brain. And strangely enough, it's like a fractal of the universe. I mean, this is wild stuff, just wild stuff. And there's so many really cool things going on right now in the world. If you listen to the media, and even though podcasts have decimated the media, and I'm very thankful for that, they have there's just this tendency to focus on the negative. And I think we're wired that way psychologically, because a negative is always potentially more life-threatening than a positive, right? So, you see this in lots of animals. They're not necessarily aware of all the positives, so all the food in the field, that's not what gets their attention. What does get their attention is, a little bit of grass moving, because it might be a tiger in the weeds, or a stick cracking or something like that. So, it's understandable that there's this desire to just hyper focus on everything that's wrong with the world. But you will find that if you do that, it keeps you like that antelope or that deer in the field, scared, and not really lifting your head up and like looking out at all the green grass out there. Now, that being said, to quote some words from Christ, I think it was Christ. I feel like the field is ripe and ready for harvest. In other words, I feel like there's so much good in the world. However, simultaneously, we're in one of the most anti-spiritual times in human history. It appears that way, because when you go back and you look at all the ancient cultures, they were ridiculously spiritual, really into astronomy and astrology, really into all of these things. And currently, it seems like, man, I got to be careful because I don't want to say things that are too categorical, but you'll find that a lot of religions have decayed into something almost anti-spiritual. And then on the other side of the coin, with extreme naturalism and all of those things, like the kind of like the Dawkins style philosophy, that's also pretty anti-spiritual. And I'm not, I don't need to get into all that, to be honest. If you find yourself in any of those places and you feel like you're happy and you're growing, and you have some kind of North Star guiding your light, and North Star guiding your life, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that any direction you choose to go is a good direction. I'm just saying that God has a way of working through so many different things that I honestly feel a bit uneasy about telling someone do this or that, or get out of that group, get into this group, because I never, it's not about groups. In fact, it seems like all groups sort of decay into tribalism over time. And if you're not aware of that term, that's a term that is worth looking into, because I don't know all the reasons for this, but humans are a social species, and it turns out that we're ridiculously tribal. and because we live on a planet that's ruled by survival of the fittest, right? That is the natural rule. No matter what you believe about the origin of life, that is the law that rules the jungle, is survival of the fittest. It becomes very difficult to get out of this tribal mentality, because when you're in a tribal group with groupthink and all of the other kind of psychological pitfalls of being in a tight group, think about how to say this here. Okay, so when you're in a tribal group, a very tight group, you start to attach your survival, your fitness, to the group itself. And in order for groups to function and be cohesive, it's necessary to have these tight frameworks, these boxes in which you can place philosophical ideas and religion and all of those things. So what typically happens is, in order, cohesiveness and certainty, those things are prioritized over humility and just admitting that we really don't know much. There was a point in time where I was very dogmatic in a particular religion, and wow, God had to, oh man, I mean, I say this in an endearing way. It was really love that got me out of that place, but it was brutal. I was burnt at the stake in the most evil way imaginable. One day I need to tell that story, but the amount of injustice that was done and what was taken from me is, it's really, really hard to relate to that type of pain unless you've been through it. In fact, there have been psychological studies on that pain and just how bad it really is. And one takeaway from that is how strong this tribal mentality is, and because of how deep that pain can go. So there was a time when I was incredibly dogmatic, and I would say very overconfident. But thankfully, my horizons have expanded quite a lot. And when you gaze up at the stars long enough, you realize how small you really are. And I think that that's an important place to be. It's uncomfortable because you can no longer make certain claims about the universe, your place in it, and your safety. Certainty is directly correlated with this intense desire we have for safety, because it's much easier to take things and put them in a black or white box and be done with it than to leave them out and look at them. Just psychologically, we like to think in binary ways because it greatly reduces mental effort and stress. And I'll give you an example. So let's say that you are an antelope out on the out in the grassland. The thinking is very binary, because binary thinking is very quick. It's very effective when it comes to survival. It's really this good or bad, good or bad, good or bad. You're constantly in this good or bad mindset. So, the field's quiet. None of the birds are sounding alarms. Good. You hear a bird make an unusual noise. Bad. So you look up. You see a bit of grass twitching. Bad. So you're human. Now, whatever you believe about humans, as far as who we are, and I tend to think that we're in the flesh we're animals, in the spirit we're something else entirely. So I'm not saying we're animals, but we have an animal nature. Point blank, if you know anything about biology, and I do have a degree from a very well-known university, very well known as far as their accomplishments in most scientific fields. Look, biologically, we're animals. I mean, through and through. But like Christ said, man cannot live by bread alone. So all religious thinkers throughout time have recognized that there's this extra dimension to our essence that just cannot function on the survival of it, this extra essence that can't function with the survival of the fittest mentality. Okay, and that's where spirituality comes in. And I have intensely pursued these things for decades, and it's one of the things that is the you never know how you're going to respond until you're actually tested. But I will say, as far as dreams and ambitions, I would love to make the claim that that it's the number one pursuit in my life. I mean, I do try to keep it up at the top, and it keeps me up at night. It consumes me in a way. And there's a real long story to all of this, which I may or may not get into because it's such a long story. But I want to throw that out there mainly for this reason, because if you have any stress in life whatsoever, if you find your job hard, if you're struggling in your relationships, if you're just overall struggling with any psychological issue, remember this: man cannot live by bread alone. And so start to think about what you can do to feed yourself and take care of this inside. Life is within. You'll notice that all of the things that you crave the most, which are the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. That may or may not be all of them. All of the things that you really crave are inside. And a lot of times we'll pursue fulfillment in those things through external means, and that's not all bad. Remember, Jesus said, "You shall not live by bread alone." It doesn't mean that you don't need bread. It just means that that's not all you need. And it's really not your first need. So I'm just throwing this out there to encourage you to, and that being said, there are a lot of religions that are, when they throw that out, that suggestion, it really comes with a lot of baggage, like pick yourself up by your bootstraps, try harder to do better, you're kind of a piece of shit, get your stuff in order, if you would just be better, people and God and all of this would love you more. I went down that road far, and let me tell you, from my experience, there's nothing there. Nothing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you lift your heart up, your intention, your prayers up to the divine, and you ask for guidance, and you ask for your daily bread, and you'll start to find things sort of begin to drop into your life. And I'm not talking about anything. One of the things that is important to understand about the divine is that many times words are softly spoken, and sometimes in riddles, often in riddles. And all that means is that you have to listen with your heart more than your ears. And so as you start to work on that sensitivity to those things, my ears are popping. It happens every morning, climbing the mountains. I shouldn't even call these mountains. You want to see mountains, you need to go out in Colorado. Those are mountains. These are big hills. There's a lot of them. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, just cultivate that sensitivity, just a little bit at a time. I find that God is not into this get-rich-quick mentality. Everyone that Jesus ever loved deeply, you'll notice that he met them right where they're at. And when you really look at it, he had practically no demands on them whatsoever. It was just like, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to show you, I'm going to reveal to you the divine, and what you do with that, that's your choice. But I believe he could do that because he was so confident that if you reach out and touch even the hem of the divine, you'll fall so deeply in love with that life that you'll have a hard time not pursuing it for the rest of your life. Now that being said, I'm not trying to paint a overly romantic picture. In fact, one of the things I struggle with in life is depression, and I've been doing better, but I'm not going to, until about a year or two goes by, I'm not going to make any claims about being totally free from that. So I know what it's like to be in hell. I'm getting a call. I know what it's like to be in hell, and I know what it's like to feel close to God and then distant the next day. So don't misunderstand where I'm at. These are all things that I pursue. I'm not speaking to you like I'm up on the mountain and I'm talking down to you in the valley. These are my ideals. This is my North Star. These are the things I gaze up at night, right? That's all I'm saying. All right, I'm going to end there. Hopefully this audio turns out. I bought kind of the best mic that I could afford, and it kind of is what it is. I mean, there's a point to where I'm just going to have to release the video, so I'm really hoping the audio turns out. Anyways, I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Happy HVACing, and conquer that machine.